Now, to close our opening ceremony for GMIS 2019, we're proud to invite the president of Kurchatov Institute National Research Center, Mikhail Kovalchuk, who will now talk about why natural-inspired technologies are the foundation for a new industrial revolution.
Good morning, Mr. Manturov, Mr. Kozak, colleagues. I listened to some of the previous speeches and the previous speech, which touched upon some nature-like technologies, and I would like to just draw your attention to some more specific details of what has been said before. When we begin anything, any project, the first thing to do is to single out our priorities. Priorities can be divided into tactical priorities that provide for our day-to-day existence and strategic priorities that have to do with the future. The first kind of priorities have to do with products and markets and industries. The second type of priorities have to do with breakthrough technological paradigms based on fundamental knowledge. If you don't tackle the tactical tasks, you won't live long enough till tomorrow. But if you have no strategy, there's probably no point in living to see the day of tomorrow. So they're interlinked. Strategic priorities, after a while, become tactical priorities. But initially, we don't even discuss products when we talk about strategic priorities. Let me give you an example. Our country, which was called the USSR, on May 9th, 1945, celebrated a victory. We had the biggest, the most technologically advanced, the best-trained army in the world. We decided the fates of humankind. But several months later, the first nuclear strikes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the Americans meant something for us. If our government and our scientists had not invested a lot of effort into the strategically important nuclear project, our victory would have been nullified, would have been rendered meaningless. So the question is, when you tackle a strategic issue, you disrupt civilization for decades. You reshape civilization. The USSR became a great power, the technological power, after the nuclear, and thanks to the nuclear project. We made the nuclear bomb, but Kurchatov and the other founding fathers created nuclear power industry, nuclear-powered icebreakers, thermonuclear energy. Now the whole world is making a tokamak. Tokamak is a Russian word. It's a device that uses magnetic field coils to confine hot plasma. We've created mega units that drive the creation of new materials, supercomputers, maths, new materials that are driving medical research today. The reason we remain one of the few sovereign states in the world is that our predecessors completed the nuclear project. It was simple back in the day. The Americans dropped their bombs, and either you have a bomb, then you have parity, or you don't, and then you die. Today, everything seems calm and simple, but in fact, humanity is facing the most frightful choice. For sustainable development today, we need to consume the right kind of, the right amount of resources, not just oil and gas, but also biomass, drinkable water, foodstuffs. The question is that globalism means that increasing number of countries are involved in the system of consumption, which means the system of resource depletion. When I was a teenager, there was a writer, a French writer, Vercors. There's a movie, Silence of the Sea, based on a work by this author. I was interested, and I read another book by this author, which was called Quota, or Proponents of Luxury. The book said that humankind, after the war, launched a new economic system of overproduction. produce, buy, consume, throw away, buy new things. A machine was created for resource destruction. That machine was meant to satisfy the interests of the countries of the golden billion. What we're seeing today is that the system that was initially meant for the global billion, for just a small proportion of humanity, is now working almost throughout our planet. And we are beginning to see the bottom of this barrel. Back in the day, that author said, when a country like India reaches the energy consumption level of the United States 6 years ago, we will see a collapse of our resources. And that's what we're seeing right now. Sure, our resources may not end now, but they may be depleted in 50 years, but at the result, we will probably still be able to use the wheel, the fire, but we will have to live without resources, and that will only be achieved after bloody wars for resources. And these wars are ongoing even now. Military colonization today has been supplanted by technological enslaving. What is enslaved is not third world countries, but developed countries, because they are the most vulnerable countries for technological colonization that is supported by military power. How did we end up like this? Nature has been existing for billions of years in harmony. It's been self-reliant without any lack of resources, and we were part of this cycle. Before the steam engine in the mid-18th century, in England and in Russia, we were part of nature. We woke up in the morning, used our own muscles, the muscles of our animals, wind and water. The steam engine and the arrival of electricity gave us new sources of energy and a way to deplete resources. Over 2 centuries, the technosphere, is just 200 years old. But this anthroposphere is alien to nature, and this is a key issue for civilization today.
So we spent more oxygen in 50 years than in the billions of years before. So the way out is only one. Either we continue to move the way we did, or we come to nature-like technology. So let me explain. We have the sun shining, and this is the thermonuclear synthesis. Then it comes into the green leaves of plants, and everything living lives at the expense of such a synthesis. And our brain is the superior creation. It's like a small bulb which consumes only dozens of watts. We have one of the most powerful computers in the Kurchatov Institute, consuming hundreds of kilowatts of energy. But we are talking about digitalization. Now, let me mention 2 things. Say a voice command for a telephone, you spend so much energy for that it is enough to boil a liter of water. And going into OECD, in the years to come, 1/3 of electricity produced and generated in the world would only be spent on the powering of various gadgets. So digitalization and the AI, the artificial intelligence, only should talk about power generation. And Mr. Kozak already mentioned that. And Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, 5 years ago, speaking at the anniversary session of the United Nations, speaking about the Kyoto Protocol, said that we would be supporting this protocol, but this is a partial solution. The real solution is about creating nature-like technologies which would not destroy the balance between nature and technologies and would restore the natural exchange of things in nature. And he said back then that we were prepared to be leaders in that area, and we were able to hold such forums. And together with UNIDA in the end of September in Sochi and with the Ministry of Trade, a forum with about 1,000 participants to talk about nature-like technologies. And we decided to have it a regular event. I would say it would be an academic Davos that would be discussing the academic foundations of such things. Now, let me distract you a little bit, philosophically speaking. Let me say and think about why did it happen this way, and we built such a system. Well, the science only began 300 years ago. We looked around us and we did not understand the world around us. It was more about God. And then we started to dissect this indivisible nature into separate segments so that we can understand those. So we built those very narrow disciplines of education and science and also sector-based economies. We built a unique civilization, and we benefit from that civilization, but we also came to a blind area, I would say. To give you an example of such a dead end, we understand now that we operate only 5% of the energy of the substance that was created 400 billion years ago as the result of the Big Bang. All the rest is the dark essence, which we don't understand. So we built a very narrow-based system with our technological economies on that. When IT appeared, they were also attached to one narrow discipline, and it was a nano technology. There's no sector now living without IT, but there are also nanotechnologies, which were called another technology. It was another suprasector technology, which helps you to create new materials. And together with IT, those two technologies would bring us to the one integral picture of the world with deep knowledge of that. Also, such processes are much deeper. Let me show you this picture. Back in the era of Newton, we only talked about natural philosophy, and there was only one academic who was called the natural philosopher. Then the nature part brought about the natural sciences, and the philosophers actually created social sciences. So now we witness the reverse process of the confluence of natural and philosophical, like cognitive studies, which were part of the humanitarian studies, thanks to various new technologies, become a natural science. Same is with genetics. Like, fingerprints and anything else, and codes, and now 3 billion signs and symbols of the genome decoded. So we now see that they merge, and the humanitarian knowledge actually grows into technologies. And this is a process not in my brain, but it's that the science and nature were pregnant with such convergence. Nanotechnologies playing with atoms, that is basically constructing any material from atoms, and many new sciences related. It is thus on biochemistry and geoeconomy appearing, not only physics and chemistry. Also, we see various other additive technologies changing the mode of production. Now we cut away anything extra and unnecessary, and the additive would bring those together. And today we see a box of puzzles with various disciplines inside, which we know quite a lot now. In the process of this recognition, we can put all those disciplines together, creating a new picture of the world based on deep knowledge. We cannot really put thousands of technologies, but the first convergent technology, nature-like technology, is the nanotechnology, which would create non-organic materials through atomic transformation, bio-hybrid materials, and IT can support this with intellectual solutions and cognitive technologies based on the study of our mentality can create an algorithm of making it a living machine. And in the Kurchatov Institute, in the Institute of Nuclear Engineering, we also have a very powerful division devoted to humanitarian sciences. So we need to look at the reverse side of the medal. We see that the nature-like technologies by coping in nature, can open endless vistas for humanity in terms of the way of life and the quality of life and longer life. But on the other hand, they can offer quite focused interference in the life of the human being, following two ways. First, biogenetics. You create an artificial cell with a very short, small genome, but with all the vital functions. On the one hand, this is some unique medicines and robots who can travel your vessels, blood vessels, and reporting back. On the other hand, it also can be a weapon of mass destruction, and also ethnogenetically modified and focused. The second thing is the ability to influence your mentality through cognitive and ethnosocial technologies, machine-to-brain interfaces and things like that. This also carries a risk, another risk. And here at such a forum, we need to understand this and think about this. Any new technology appearing also suggests new risks. Same was true with nuclear engineering. Now we can measure the beam of neutrinos and see what is being produced, weapon-grade plutonium or something else. Now here, I'm talking about medicine, and I actually am making a weapon of mass destruction. It is very difficult to distinguish between the two in this new era. And there are no efficient ways of control. Today, we can count the warheads of nuclear missiles, so we control the weapons. Now, we need to control not only weapons, but control the technologies, and this is very important. The second danger is that even if you produce a nuclear bomb, few people can make this. You need also to create a nuclear-powered submarine or a plane, etc. And here you don't need any delivery systems. You just put a vial from your pocket and put this into a well, and that's all it takes to spread this new WMD. But you need to have some methods of control of nature-like technologies. So these are all open publications about such things that I discussed. These are the grant-based projects across the world. And coming to the end of my presentation, let me say that our country has a very clear position. The President of Russia approved the strategy of scientific and technological development with 8 civilizational challenges, not only to our country, but globally speaking. A very short document, which is available from the website kremlin.ru, and this is basically the description of the challenges, which has no linear responses in today's paradigm. We need to have new approaches, of principled new approaches and new ideas to meet those challenges. In the implementation of nature-like technologies, at our proposal, supported by the leadership of this country, in our institute, we actually created a center for nature-like technologies based on the convergence of various scientific technologies. The basis is the sources of neutrinos, a supercomputer, and various other technologies like biomedical things. Now, you have both the software and the hardware, and you have biomedicine, microelectronics, and today's technology is about microelectronics. Developing nature-like technologies, we need to have a connection to the microelectronics. So we have the chips, the full production, and on the other hand, we have the biomedicine, the stem cells, etc. Then crystallography and nanotechnologies, an interface which connects microelectronics with the living beings. Outside, you have the software, the neurocognitive studies of brain and computing as well. And there you study your mentality, your thinking, and create hybrid systems and anthropomorphic systems and mechanisms. What is important? Take a look. We have a full section which I think is looking into biocompatible materials like skins and organs, etc. And these are nature-like things for sure. Then biofuel cells using the metabolical processes of the human body. Like we all eat, and then we are very efficient in terms of energy consumption. And so we create biofuel cells based on such metabolical processes, and perhaps by using some sensors inbuilt into the human bodies. And totally new computing. We actually built a wrong system of computing. The brain is slow. It lives in the analog world, and our computers operate with zeros and ones. So basically, consuming a lot of energy for nothing. So we need a new mathematics and new computing, something that we are actively developing. Now, this is the cognitive thing. So, for example, 80% of our information we receive through our eyes. This is the brain, the interface, and interface with the machine. And through visual, we can open broad vistas, technological vistas. Also, we actually see some convergence between technology and humanitarian sciences. In our Polytechnical Museum, we have 10 mummies, and we actually studied all those mummies with computer tomography. We used also the chemical analysis, and we restored these faces. So we will be actually exhibiting those replicas now. So we have the stories of illnesses of people who died thousands of years ago, and this is very interesting for all of us. And we have new insights into the ancient technologies. So we are talking about osteochondrosis, and basically those mummies actually had those problems at the age of 30.
Our country, our president, have announced a very ambitious set of national projects. One of them is science. To implement nature-like technologies, we have a program of measures, and we've launched two powerful programs. One on genetics that provides the tools for working with nature, and first and foremost genetic editing. And the second one has to do with creating in Russia a network of mega units and facilities. We are building a new reactor in Gatchina near St. Petersburg, and we're building 3 synchrotron centers, fourth generation centers, 2 sources, one in Siberia and the other one in the Far East. In 5 to 8 years, Russia will have the most powerful and advanced research infrastructure. And now, allow me to wrap up by saying this. Why do we need all of these facilities and units? Mr. Manturov mentioned Russia investing about 2 billion euros into European mega projects. We're talking about CERN, about the free electron laser in Hamburg, another unit in Ramstadt, and the European Synchrotron Center in Grenoble. We didn't just invest 2 billion. What we added, we donated intellectual property, because the whole world is building tokamak. It's a Russian invention, and it was invented by the Kurchatov Institute. Now the whole world is building something like that in the south of France. Free electron technology was proposed by Soviet scientists, and the whole world is building these machines. Everything in the world today is defined by the function of understanding. Function is motion. Planets move, mechanical things move. But how are we making technologies, new technology today? We find a piece of quartz in the mountains. We'll take a look at it. We'll study its physical properties. We understand it's a piezo quartz. If I compress it, it produces electricity. If I run a current through it, it expands. You have it in your watch, in any device. How did we see that? We used an X-ray machine to see where the atoms are inside this piece of quartz for this property to occur. And then empirically we're trying to reproduce this. But atoms are in this position either due to the Big Bang or due to chemical reactions. If we could glean from nature how atoms ended up where they are, we would be able to have a breakthrough in technology. We have chaos, in essence. This chaos is used to produce order. This is the way of the world. We are looking at ordered structures today and are trying to replicate them. And our task is to see how chaos restructures itself to become organized. And these new facilities and units we are creating will allow us to be able to see that. What we're doing in Europe is dedicated to that as well. So this, in a nutshell, is all. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Kovalchuk. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all our guests who've helped us to open GMIS 2019. They've certainly left us with an awful lot of things to think about over the next 3 days. This is a platform that will allow all of you, all of us, to really think about how we can move forward in bringing equality to a world of disparity through cutting-edge technologies. Do enjoy and please do contribute. Thank you.